Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is LolaAjisafe. We are going to be reviewing Ready to Love. I think we're on episode 9. Wife Me Please. Like, they're steadily picking Morgan's one-liners. So Morgan has to go to the final. I mean, there's no question here, but if you all realize, a lot of the episode titles are Morgan's nifty, witty one-liners. So anyway, before we start, housekeeping rules, please don't forget to like as you come in. As you see my face smiling, please hit the like button. Second of all, please let me know what you think. Give me your opinions. Last but not least, if you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. So like I said, this is episode 9. This is going to be starting off with the men's lounge. This episode, we're going to be sending one of the ladies home. So of course, those of us that have been watching it for seasons, a few seasons, we know they always get to the point where it's, meet the homie. So now we've come to this episode where it's like, yeah, you want your lady to meet the homie. The premise for this is that sometimes you might be blindsided by the beauty or whatever it is, whatever what you think you're looking for, but you're probably not looking at. You might be distracted by some of the shiny covering. So they figure that, which is true, when you're in a situation with it's always easier to see someone's situation better than it is to see yours. So if you have a friend who knows you pretty well, has known you a couple of years, have probably heard you, vent or complain, they can look at the situation and say, I don't think it's going to work for you, or it might work for you. They can see what you're not seeing because you're kind of distracted by something else. So the premise of this coming up every season makes sense, but it doesn't always end up in a train wreck. In seasons past, it's kind of, some of the homie and the girl have kind of clashed and bumped heads, but let's see how this goes. So that's the premise for this episode. Let's meet the homie. I was looking at as they're sitting down, I think it's 6 guys, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've got 6 in my head, and Lyndon's still here. Like, I'm not hating on Lyndon or anything, but Lyndon steady has just had a one connection. That one connection at best is a backup. I'm just saying this season seems a little different from past seasons. I don't know how, but it just seems different. The homie Lyndon has survived thus far on one connection that is really a half connection because he's the backup. But if I'm wrong, y'all, we'll celebrate. I'll sit down and eat crow, but I'm just saying, that's just an aside. I just happened to notice. Of course, Uncle Nephew Tommy brings up this situation where, Blake is still here. He called him the cat that has 20 lives. Well, we always say a cat has 9 lives, but yeah, Blake has been on chopping block almost every episode. But like we said, and like we understand, he's in with production. Like, he's a plant by production. I don't know, I'm just saying, this is it. I'm just saying, because he really acts like he doesn't care and really has not attempted to pursue anybody else, even his main interest, Miss Suan. I'm not convinced, and he's not meant to convince me. Let's not get this wrong, he's not meant to convince me, but I'm just not like, I'm just looking like, it'll be a pleasant surprise if he truly does like her, and he just doesn't carry over onto camera. But I'm just looking like, from the very first time they were talking, I'm like, I don't think she knows, because I don't know either. But that's an aside. So the first meeting we're going to be talking about, the first homie we're meeting is Jermaine. Jermaine is Andre's homie, and he's going to be meeting Cynthia and Jeffrey. Straight off the cuff, I don't think this is a fair matchup. Because yes, Jeffrey, she can talk, she's able to speak, but it's just not a fair matchup with Cynthia, because Cynthia is, no, I don't want to say that, it's not about her being articulate. That's not the point. Everybody's articulate, or at least the ladies, most of the ladies are articulate. But I think Cynthia has a carriage that is, and it's not that they're meant to be in competition, but Cynthia has a carriage that is really hard to miss. And when you notice her, it's really hard to notice anybody else. And on top of that, she speaks with conviction, and she's quite earnest, and her authenticity comes through the camera and comes through to the person. So immediately I'm like, I know my sister's gonna knock this ball out the park. And in my opinion, she surely does. So, they go through a couple questions, about kids. She says, yeah, I've got 2 kids. It's Cynthia. Cynthia says, yeah, I've got 2 kids. I can give you 2 more and a dog. Like, she's clear, like, where she's gonna fit in. You're just gonna peg her into a box. She's clear what she wants to do. She goes on talking about, I can't remember the question the friend asked, but her response is what made me forget the question, because she talked about creating a safe space for her partner where he would feel comfortable expressing himself. So we've always talked about, yeah, the black man, he's always meant to look tough. He's always, he's considered weak if he doesn't cry. I think in 2023, we know that's not true. Most of y'all watching this video most likely have watched an episode of, is it Meet the Wifey podcast by Laterris Whitfield, and he had one episode earlier this year in January when he was describing a breakup with a partner who was, they're going through pre-marital counseling, and the relationship didn't make it past the pre-marital counseling, and he put the camera on and literally just poured his heart out. I think most people in my position think that showed more strength than weakness. The guy was talking about it, and when he spoke of her, he didn't speak of her, with disrespect. He still spoke of her respectfully, but you could see he was broken up about it. And mid-episode, my G broke down and cried. And I had the utmost respect for this gentleman, because the whole point of this whole podcast was him, cataloging his journey to meet his wifey. So I bring this back to say that Cynthia talking about creating a safe space for her man to express his emotions is key. In 2023, we're not expecting, sometimes I do say suck it up, buttercup, but we're not expecting you to suck it up all the time. There's situations where you're meant to lift your neck up and stiffen up your shoulders, and there are times when you should be able to sit down, relax, and be yourself. And she's saying she's going to be that safe space for him. I was like, yo, sis, say no more. The friend he was blown away. He's like, sis, you got me, woo. I would just want to say, with the way Cynthia has presented herself thus far, whether she ends up with someone on this show, she is ready for her life partner, in my humble opinion. And if it's not on this show, she's going to meet him after the show, or she's met him already. Because it's like, when you're ready, there's this thing that Dwayne Dyer used to say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. When you've prepared yourself for a journey, for something, then it presents itself. Two guys sit down, they discuss. Jermaine, rightfully so, Jermaine is blown away by Cynthia and says, that's the one for me. And of course, the homie, Andre, says that, yeah, she answered the question too quickly and too smoothly, that he's not convinced. So, when we say that people are projecting, I feel like this is a projection. Like, so how earnest is he when he's speaking? He might just be talking about himself. Note this here, but another thing is like, so you just trying to find a proper reason to say, to justify picking Jeffrey. I feel like he wants Jeffrey over Cynthia. He's not saying. Be honest. Don't bring down Cynthia to lift up Jeffrey. Just say, this is my preference, and just skew to that. That's what you want. That's what you want. You can't go for what everybody else wants for you. You have to go for what you want, whether it's wrong or right. There's a lesson to be learned if you make that mistake. So next, meet the homie date is Marc Anthony and his homie Marc. Too many Marks on this show. I'm sorry. I'm tired. Like, this is Marc with a C apparently. So he gets to meet Mercedes and Jeffrey. Two different ladies. I've said, in the past that, it seemed the analogy for them was, his connection with Jeffrey is like, the 1860s, and then his connection with Mercedes is like 2013. Like, they just had he has a more playful energy with Mercedes. As they're talking, I guess they're kind of breaking down their backgrounds and everything. Jeffrey goes on to talk about, so the friend asks, talking about, well, you've got kids, he doesn't have kids. How do you want to correlate that in terms of how do you think it's going to affect the relationship? How do you think you guys are going to relate? And she goes on to say, I do have misgivings because the last guy who broke my heart didn't have kids. I can definitely give her points for being earnest and honest, because your truth is your truth, and you can't go wrong with telling your truth. So the ladies leave, the two friends talk. Marc seems like a stand-up guy. He's like, what? When I'm looking at two ladies, Mercedes seems more like the type that you've dated in the past. Two things to take note of, left and right. On one hand, if Mercedes is typical of the ladies he's dated in the past, does this mean that he's doing the same old thing? So if they didn't work, then why would this work? But then again, if this is something familiar for him, then is this something that's probably he's more suited for? It's hard to say. So it's like, at the end of the day, he's going to have to make his decision. I do believe the friend did opt and say that he felt that Mercedes was better suited for him. But at the end of the day, Marc Anthony, this is your choice. All right, so the next meet the homie date was Troy, Lyndon's friend, meeting Morgan. Yeah, Troy kind of cute. But let's not be distracted by the mission at hand. But yeah, Troy, you kind of cute. So anyway, back to the mission. So they get talking, and Morgan keeps it real. There's no doubt here. And I wonder, and I don't know, I wonder if Morgan's, because sometimes it can be an interpretation of intensity. Morgan's intensity, and yeah, she can be quite blunt. She's straightforward. If it might be too much for Lyndon, I don't know. You'll think, because Lyndon, I don't know, because it's all cute and fun now for Lyndon, but the very thing he likes about, the very thing he thinks he likes in terms of this, maybe the very thing that he may feel is overpowering later on. I just don't see the match there. Like, they're probably cool friends, but in a relationship, that strength and intensity, I don't know. I just feel like it could end up burning Lyndon. But that's really an aside. Getting back to the point. So she talks about her 5-year versus 2-year plan. And she says one of her misgivings about Lyndon is that his 5-year plan is her 2-year plan. AKA, she's trying to get married. Lyndon's not trying to get married for another 5 years. She's trying to get it done in 2. You know what? Say what you want and let the chips fall where they may. I'm not mad at her stating, because that's what the whole point. That's the whole point of the show. This is a dating show. This is what you want. I do believe, and people do say this, I do believe you shouldn't be afraid to say what you feel in the fear that you're going to scare someone off, because if that person's for you, you're not going to scare them off. It'll just broker a deeper conversation. If they get scared off, they weren't for you to begin with. So I can't really fault her for saying this is my plan. It's honest. Guys do the same thing too. Why can't women say this is what I'm looking for? Do you fit or don't you fit? Let's not waste anybody's time. Let's not waste 3 years only to find out that you still want to wait another 2 years. So it's good to say this up front. So I didn't have a problem with that. What I had a problem with was when they started discussing Negate and talking about this Nair fiasco. She talks about it, and of course Lyndon had brought it up to his friend Troy, and when they asked her about it, she was laughing. She seemed almost proud about it. She said it kind of described how it was. She knew she was going to exit, so it was her final ta-da, pièce de résistance of exiting the relationship. Her presentation or response to this Nair fiasco just made me put my head down like, oh Jesus, because it makes me think, could she do this again? If she is, or something similar, if she feels triggered, would she do it again? I would love to her, and I'm not her, but it would have been nice if she had said, that was me then, this is me now. That would make me think that she's grown from it, because it was definitely childish, vindictive. I don't think any of us want to be with someone who's vindictive, because that means they always want to get their pound of flesh regardless. And the truth is, as humans, when we interact, we're always going to offend each other. It doesn't matter who you are, pastor, priest, other than God, you're going to offend that person you're in a relationship with. And now if you're walking around with the fear that, oh, I've offended them, they're coming for their pound of flesh, that doesn't make it safe or feel comfortable. Forgiveness is key. Like, you can't grow without forgiveness. Is she able to forgive misgivings, or is this just something she's going to carry with because she's a lovely lady? Is this the reason why she's in this situation? I don't know, but just her presentation, I'm like, whew, Morgan, I like you, sis, but this is not a good look. Like, I'm not saying sometimes that thing doesn't get the best of us sometimes when we're trying to get our pound of flesh, but when you're able to sit down and look at it in retrospect, it's like, no, I don't think it was something to be proud of. When we're talking as grown-ups, when we're talking as adults, I don't think that's something to be proud of. I'm sorry. So yeah, that was just like, and Troy, rightfully so, he called this a red flag. He talked about it as a red flag that could to cover a football field, and I agree. But no man is perfect. So let's continue and see how this goes on. All right, the next date is LaShawn, who is Blake's friend, meets up with Suan. So I think she asked Suan about her 5-year plan. Suan is earnest, saying that she would rather leave with no one than to leave with the wrong person. Okay, I give you that. That's true. There's also an appreciation between the ladies that he's black or white. So he's honest, he's earnest. I don't think my issue with Blake is that he's honest or blunt. I think my issue with Blake is that he has an arrogance about him and feels that he's always right. And I don't think he has the ability to be self-introspective, or at least I haven't seen it displayed on the show. He has this cocky arrogance when he looks at everyone like they're in the wrong. And I don't think I've seen him reflect and think that, oh, maybe I should have done it differently. Every time they've given him feedback in the elimination dates, aka bubble dates, he's like yeah, on them. So yeah, it might be cute on camera, but I think nobody wants to be in a relationship with someone who always feels they're right, who always feels, aka feels that they're better than you, always feels that their opinion is more important than your opinion, because a relationship is a give and take. He doesn't seem like somebody that can, compromise sometimes where it's needed. He doesn't look like somebody who can agree to disagree. So that's my issue with him. And the whole, mechanics in the trenches of relationship, unless he's just nervous and presenting one angle, one dimension, he's not going to be an easy person to be in a relationship with. And then of course he just doesn't come off authentic, like he's hiding something, like something wrong with him, because by all intents, I think I said from the jump, like he's an attractive man, but there's something that just kind of makes it look like So I don't have an issue with him being blunt, but there's a different thing between blunt and just being rude. It's a little more than a thin line. So when you're going cross blunt to rude, then you intentionally want to be rude, and that's what I think I do feel it comes across as rude a lot of the time. And then I think one of the final questions that I think Lashana asked, what's her name, Sue-Ann, was comes out that she's recently divorced 2 years, she has kids. So her question now is, how is it going to be for her opening her heart again with all the baggage she's had from her last relationship? That's an honest, good question, and honestly I don't remember how she answered it, but I guess she gave us some kind of answer, but I don't think it was even enough for LaShawn to be satisfied with, because I think after she left they did discuss the possibility of, is she going to have baggage after the relationship? Well, LaShawn, the truth is your boy had baggage too. That's possibly why he acts the way he acts. But not to say that two damaged people need to come together, but I mean, you were batting for your boy, so rightfully so. But that's the question, really, if we talk about it, we've all been in different relationships, so we're all carrying different bags, and possibly we all haven't put down those bags before we enter the next one. And this is where, everybody talk about healing, but exactly what is healing? When you have to sit down and really acknowledge what transpired. How do you feel about it? I think you really have to process it, and then really clear the slate and come away from that experience not with anger or bitterness, but with some gratitude for the lesson you got from that experience. I think if you can look at it like that, then you are truly on the road to healing. I don't think anybody is 100% healed, because it's a journey, not a destination. And I think that's when you can say, oh, I'm ready, I'm open, and you're not going to be carrying those experiences. You're human, you're still going to have some triggers, but you're not going to be holding those experiences like right in front and jump every time something comes up, because it reminds you of a prior experience that you didn't respond to, but now you feel the need to respond to now because you let it go before. So yeah, I say that to say that, okay, it's a good question, but we're all kind of walking around with it. But I do think it's good to be cognizant of the fact that we have these things from prior relationship that we have to deal with, which is why it makes so much sense up front. Don't be afraid to say what you mean and mean what you say, because it doesn't make sense to get into a relationship imagine this, let me give you the analogy. Brand new car, lovely, like wherever your choice is. Let's talk about a black Range with cinnamon leather seats, all the bells and whistles, and you're driving the car, enjoying the car, and for some reason you're feeling by yourself. You've got great music playing, it's a nice summer day, but it's not too hot, so you've got the windows down, so there's like fresh breeze coming in. You got your favorite jam playing, like what's that song, I can't remember his name, playing, and you're feeling good, and all of a sudden you feel like, oh, I'm alone, let me get someone in the car to drive with me so I can chat. And then you pick up, of all people, a drunk. Now I'm not here to talk about make you feel bad because you drink, but you pick someone who's drunk. The problem with this drunk person is they're not respecting their surroundings. So they sit in the car, the motion sickness hits, and they throw up in your car. And even after they've left your car, the stench of that vomit is in the car. I feel that's my analogy for get into a relationship hasty with someone that you really shouldn't have gotten to in the first place, because even after you've chased them away, they linger on and you have to spend time cleaning it out. Whereas if you saw them there like, yo, this is not for me, you just keep driving, you wouldn't have had to go through, spend all that extra pit stop time to drop them off, clean the car once, twice, or get the car detailed, time and effort and money. We're kind of going into this analogy deep, but yeah, that's how it is for relationships. Sometimes it might look, you might feel like a little, hunger for something. Talk to Jesus, play this song louder, call a friend. Yeah, that's true. Phone a friend. Don't put someone in your car that you don't need to, because the time and effort you spend cleansing them out, you could spend chilling on the beach or going to Jamaica. I don't know if you all get the analogy, but that's how I feel about relationships. So yeah, that's how it is. And I say this to say that we can all be guilty of that. This is not me talking to you, but talking to us, talking to me too. That sometimes when you feel that little, don't let the sensational, the temporary sensation of loneliness make you make a decision that will now bring you back 2 steps back than where you were before you started it. Next, meet the homie date is Tron. That's Tony's friend. So Tron is meeting Morgan and Marcia. Morgan talks about her 2-year plan, and she comes up with the Monica Wife Me Please, which is the title of this episode. She's earnest, and I think I like about Tony and Morgan is Morgan's like, she keeps it real with him, and he kind of likes that because he is a strong character too. They're similar. There's a strength in him that can take that. He's actually kind of tickled by it, the sassiness of it all. But I think in all we see of Morgan, that being forthright, being blunt, being honest, there's also a softness. But she's been hurt in the past. She's been disappointed in the past. So you're getting to see just this person right here, the witty, great person with one-liners, straightforward person. But there's a softness to her, and I feel like she does do a decent job of articulating her boundaries quickly. She says them quickly. She says what she wants quickly. And there's something to be learned from that. Whether you like her or not, you all need to look at what she's doing. I'm not saying it's a winning formula, but there's some things in everyone that we can say, oh, we could do this, or we could do that, or I could do that. That makes sense. And I think that's something to look at. She has a quick wit. And it almost seems like, yeah, Marcia's there, but it's like she's not. It's like Morgan is taking up the whole date, because I'm just looking at Morgan, so is the friend. And when they get talking later on, friend says that Marcia had great answers, even in terms of production, giving us clips. We saw mostly Morgan because Morgan's presence and her one-liners make great TV, but of course they have to edit it out, so we don't get that much of Marcia. If you think about the whole, we haven't got too much of Marcia. We didn't get too much of her today because she's matched up against Morgan. And so friend says that Marcia had great answers. I don't remember any of her answers. I know there's maybe one or two answers they showed. But he says Morgan's very direct. So there's something striking about Morgan. Morgan isn't a quiet taste. I like, I don't know if he said what she should go for. He just kind of said, you know what? This is this and this is that. Because Tron, I believe, did not tell him to pick anyone. He said, I'm just going to give you the pluses and the minuses. At the end of the day, you have to make your choice. I can respect that him saying that, because it's true. This is going to be your choice. This is something you're going to live with. And he knows his friend well enough to say, to leave it alone. He's like, this is what I see. You make your choice. Because he didn't put any later down. He pretty much kind of brought up the highlights of what he saw. I think that was probably one of the great homie matchups, because he really knows his friend and was able to really delve into the ladies and figure them out. All right, next date, Miriam, who's a friend of Anthony NP, meets up with the ladies. Now, my G, he got 3 ladies. He got Suan, he's got Cynthia, and he's got Mercedes. But I think this kind of tells us where the matchings are. Or this might have been scheduling, I don't know. But he first of all has like a one-on-one with Miriam and Cynthia. I feel like this is telling. And so if the ladies are now watching it the way we're watching it now, they'll be like, shoot, he already picked his top. I don't know. I'm just saying it might turn out that there was something to do with scheduling. That's why this happened. But those of us watching were like, yeah, they had a great date that time. So they had a great connection. I think the energy that Cynthia brings and the fact that Anthony likes her makes it a great combination. So anyway, You know, Miriam meets her. They get talking. Let me talk about the other two before I already say what Miriam said. So later in the afternoon, Miriam meets Mercedes and meets Suwan. Mercedes is honest about her apprehension about Anthony already having a already made family because he has children, he's grown, he's established in his career. She's a little intimidated that she's not quite there yet. Fair enough. I mean, he's assured her, but she still has to think and ask herself, how can she fit into it? Is she ready to be someone's stepmom? Is she ready to do this? Like, she's going to have to do some catching up, whether he's, willing to wait, or whether he says he's willing to wait or not. She still has to put some work into it. And then of course Suwan comes out the gate, blah blah blah. You didn't tell me you like me. I'm dun 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 ba dum bum 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 bum. Like, that started quick. And I don't know if she said that because she's really not interested, but just showed up for the date just because she's trying to use him as a backup, or she really feels some kind of way about it. I would say, in my opinion, if you have doubts, questions, thoughts, you're not sure about how someone feels about you, and when I say someone, I mean someone in a possible relationship, I think that's your answer right there. Because if you're questioning if someone feels for you, then maybe they don't feel for you. They're just not saying it. Because our body language is louder than words. So if you haven't felt it, please don't mistake. I'm not saying that that's enough. The person has to articulate it. But I feel like if you have questions about it already, that's already a sign. That's your intuition telling you, warning you that, hold up, this person's not feeling like that. Please, Mark, look at every situation you've been in. If you had to doubt how someone's felt about you, they don't feel like that about you. They're just not that into you. That's just, in my experience, that's how it's played out. But once again, I'm not saying that they shouldn't articulate it, but if you have to question it, then it's probably not there. So Miss Suwan, you had to question it. It wasn't there. I mean, he did turn to you and say, oh, I don't like it. No, it's the game. Like, you gaming at this point. Like, you gaming. And he did feel some kind of way about her coming out the gate. Like, at the end of the day, Miriam's like, yo, Cynthia's the best fit for you, Reggie. Cynthia's the best fit. I concur. Miriam, I concur. So, date's over. We get into the gents lounge for elimination. So they get recapping. Touch on Andre's recap of how he felt about Cynthia. Still say he don't feel like Cynthia was being sincere about her wanting to protect his emotions. He doesn't believe her. I think that says more about you than it does about her. And nephew Tommy concurs with this because he said, you just don't know what you want, period, point blank. You haven't made your mind up. We're moving on. And then something, as they were kind of deciding on who doesn't want who they're putting on the chopping block. Now this definitely could be editing. Blake may have also mentioned Morgan, but I just thought it was funny or messy of production to just show Blake talking about putting Cynthia on the chopping block. Because in the past, Cynthia has gone, I won't say she's gone on the bat for him, but she's spoken with him respectfully and said, I get you, I understand you. But he just said, yeah, I have nothing with Cynthia, like she needs to go. So yeah, that, production's getting a little bit messier. So they put that there, but I can't imagine that he didn't say Morgan's name first before he said Cynthia. But y'all tell me, I don't know what y'all think about that, but I thought that was like, Anyway, we're going into elimination dates, aka bubble dates. Who's on chopping block? First of all, we know first person, Suwan. She meets up with Anthony. Second person is Marcia. She meets up with Marc Anthony. So Anthony MP meets up with Suwan. So you know what? When I see this, let's go back. So already, when I see it's Marcia and I see it's Suwan, we know, you and me, we know that Suwan is in with production's pet Blake. They ain't trying to send Blake home. Blake has a connection with nobody else but air at this point. So if they send Suwan home, that means Blake has nothing to do. They're not going to send Suwan home. Besides, Suwan does have another connection. So she has two connections, whereas Marcia just has one connection with Tony. So already when we see the people on chopping block, we know it's a no-brainer. Sometimes you're wondering, this is a no-brainer. Marcia's going home. But what I do like and what I do want, and I want to dedicate this episode to Marcia. Marcia's exit was class A. What she say? Thank you guys. I love you guys. And I don't know if she felt like that, but she was pristine. Like, yo, deuces. So yeah, I just want to say this was a classy exit. She was a class act. I mean, she did carry herself well from beginning to end. They weren't able to, portray her because she wasn't messy. She didn't have all these one-liners, but she's good. She seems like good people. So Marcia, It's been real. What we are, we're at the end of the episode. Y'all, thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. Lola, over and out.